restraint. When I walk into my father's room in the CCU this morning, his bed is sharply angled up. His left hand, loose from the restraint, holds the bed control, and the oxygen mask dangles around his neck, its plastic cup tilted out and spilling air. The hospital gown is bunched above his waist, and for the first time in my 47-year-old life, I have an unobstructed view of something I've only glimpsed before. It's swollen, and out of the uncircumcised folds runs a catheter, the inside coated dull yellow. His right hand swipes at the twisted tubing, but misses. "Here," I say, covering him with a sheet and tightening the mask over his nose and lips. My 84-year-old father grumbles and shifts towards me, but his eyes stay closed. His chest and shoulders heave with the enormous effort of breathing. The plastic fogs for a moment, and his breathing calms. I pull the Velcro tabs apart, but I cannot bring myself to bind my father's wrists. The restraints are soft white pads, lined with terry cloth, but still restraints. I go for help. Yesterday morning was nothing like this. When I came into his room, I found my father sitting up in bed, the green strings of his oxygen mask tucked neatly over his ears. Someone had shaved him and combed his thick white hair, but parted it on the wrong side. "How are you feeling, Dad?" I asked, not expecting an answer. He'd been off the ventilator just 2 days, and no one thought he'd live long breathing on his own. But as the hours wore on and nurse after nurse came in to take his vitals, they were all amazed. "Best we've seen him yet," one said. "Pulse ox right up there." Now my father's lips are moving under the mask again, around what have to be words, and I come closer. His blue eyes are soft around the edges. The centers look almost crystalline. His skin has a glow as if it were backlit, and his cheeks are plump in his face. I stretch the mask away and lean over to listen. "You know, I feel pretty good." He looks surprised himself. His voice is hoarse but perfectly intelligible over the oxygen's soft hiss. "You do?" I pull the hospital chair up. He nods. "Ready for a few more rounds." I laugh for the first time since I left my husband and son back in Berkeley a week ago. The TV hanging from the ceiling is switched on, but muted. In the silence, Dad and I watch a ball game, just like we used to, him screaming at the screen, and me alongside him. Only he's quiet now, his eyes following the players as they pitch and run themselves around the diamond. When I glance again, his eyes have drifted closed. How pale his eyelashes have gotten. I hadn't looked so closely in years. I pick up his not yet restrained hand and find it cool to the touch. I begin to rub the calloused palm with clumsy strokes. The skin warms. He begins talking again, and I bend toward him. "I said, I'd like to know who your father is." "My father?" His eyes look sincere, but still my head cocks back in disbelief. "Why?" "I'd like to compliment him on his daughter." He smiles. It takes me a moment to understand, and when I do, my throat closes with tears. "It's you, Dad," I say when I can speak again. "The compliment goes to you." The nurse comes in and tightens the restraints around my father's wrists. "We don't like to use these things," she says, "but last night was pretty bad. He kept trying to get out of bed. Have you ever..." She stops and studies me for a moment. "Can you come back and sit with him tonight?" She doesn't call my father combative, but still, I wonder. Because he was. Combative, I mean. My mother got the worst of it. He never left a mark that I could see, but still scared her so bad that she flinched whenever he came up fast and close. She only wants to visit Dad in the hospital once a day, and then she huddles in the corner like a small white bird before darting forward to give him a quick kiss on the forehead. Then she settles in the chair and promptly falls asleep. Me, he was easier on. The fact is, he never hit me. Maybe because I was the girl, the only girl. But he'd scream, his face so close to mine that I could map the broken capillaries on his cheeks, feel spit spray through the gaps in his teeth. "Don't you ever," he'd yell. "Next time I'll..." Me, tears flowing. When it was all over and the house quiet again, he'd find me in my room and we'd all go to big, fancy restaurants, like El Charro or the Rib. He'd let me order anything, 2 of something even, plus dessert. I remember the table being crowded with half-eaten steak, sugary churros, soupy ice cream. I became the good girl, the never good enough girl who doesn't mention any of this to the nurse. "Sure," I say, "I can come back." The CCU is dark by the time I arrive. It took me longer than I'd expected to settle my mother down for the night, get her tea with lemon, and turn on the rerun. Walking down the hall to my father's room, I pass a mix of real and television sounds coming from the half-lit rooms. A voice saying, "Hello? Hello?" A machine rhythmically thrumming, the screams of police sirens. When I walk in, my father's body looks bigger than it did this morning, his face younger, as if all the oxygen he's been breathing has pushed the wrinkles out and made the skin smooth. The hand lying on the top of the sheet is thick-fingered, and one long foot with sharp toenails hangs off the bed. "Hey, Dad," I say, trying to sound upbeat. "How are ya?" The Polaroid I brought in yesterday sits on the nightstand next to the tray of food he hasn't touched. A carton of apple juice and lime jello with a dab of petrified Cool Whip. In the photo, he hovers over the Thanksgiving turkey, seeming to relish both the knife he's holding and my mother's flowered apron that he's wearing. His mouth is half open in a joke. At the sound of my voice, my father's eyes flicker, but his left hand keeps inching towards the right. Now he's gotten hold of the restraint and he's trying to work it off. I push his hand away. "Don't do that, Dad, okay?" His forehead wrinkles into a frown. I recall the nurse saying that if I'm right there, the restraints aren't necessary. I loosen the warm bindings and slide the chair over so it presses into the bed. He dozes off. I lean back and open my book. His leg twitches under the blanket. He turns towards me, his lips part as if he's about to speak, but he turns away. "Want something?" I nudge the mask higher up on his nose. He doesn't respond. The light behind the bed shadows the circles under his eyes, and my hand over his face darkens them that much more. Half an hour or so goes by and I hear the sounds of movement again. When I look up from my book, my father has kicked off the blanket and is struggling to get his leg over the bed. His eyes are fully open and dark now at the centers. "I'm late," he says. "This is a hospital, Dad. You're in a hospital." He swings the other leg over. I place my hand over his. "Go to sleep." He bats at me with his free arm, but misses. "You'll hurt yourself. Come on, all the tubing." I press slightly on his chest so he'll lie back. "Get away. Get." The hand flies up and hits me in the face, hard. My cheek burns. For the first time in my life, I think, he wants to do this. He likes to do this. "Get back to bed," I shout at him in a voice that's all too familiar. It's not only the voice of my father that I heard growing up, but the one I find using when my son won't do what I say. "Now!" My father falls back on the bed, breathing hard. The nurse rushes into the room, coming to a stop at the foot of the bed. She looks from me to my father, his eyes big and wet and weepy above the mask. "Is everything okay?" she asks. I nod and say yes. She walks closer, picks up the restraint loose on the bed, and opens it enough to slip my father's wrist through. "Maybe it'll be easier if we put him in these tonight." I blink. like I have no idea what she's talking about. Thank you.